Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Unapologetically Audacious. I am your host, Rebecca, and today's guest is nothing short of remarkable. From a young journalist to a celebrated ghostwriter, entrepreneur, Forbes contributor, public speaker, mentor, mental health advocate, and so much more. Her story is truly one of resilience and creativity. Please join me in welcoming Pauleanna Reid. Pauleanna, thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Pauleanna, we had the opportunity of working together so many years ago. In fact, I was working under your wing, your mentorship, your leadership. And I just wanted to first kick off with gratitude for you for the belief, I'm getting emotional, for the belief that you had in me. I was so young and you left such an impression on me. And I have so much respect for you and everything that you have done, career, professional, and as a human being. So that's the first thing I wanted to start off with was gratitude for you and your existence and the impression you leave on the world.
I appreciate that so much. Mentorship is really important to me because I am a mentee to six or seven mentors who've been mentoring me for more than a decade. And so I just know that the power of mentorship can change your life and change the way you think. And so it's just something that's really important to me. And I think it's the greatest gift that I can give with my life as well.
It's interesting because the mark that you leave on people and just that aspect of mentorship, I feel like there's no specific duration. I was part of your team for such a short period of time. I think it was no more than 5 or 6 months or something, and it was me who needed to take the step back, and you showed me so much grace, so much compassion, and in that moment, I didn't even realize that that's what I needed until so many years later. So to have this full circle moment and see everything that you've done, everything you've accomplished, but the consistency in your character, that is what I admire and I respect the most. And I can reiterate that until I'm blue in the face because truly, like from the bottom of my heart, that is what I respect and I honor the most about you.
I'm really flattered by that, but I also want to remind everyone listening is that mentor moments can happen anywhere, right? Mentor
Yeah.
moments can happen when you're in line at the grocery store, when you're in an elevator full of people. It can happen peer to peer, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be um, uh, horizontal; it can also be vertical, right? And so or vice versa. And I just want people to know that a mentorship, you're right, it doesn't have any time constraints, right? I've mentored so many women across the world, some within a single conversation, others for numerous years. And I think that we all have it within us to become mentors, right? And so you can still do you can still be a good person and do well in business, right? You can still be a good person and live abundantly. And I want people to know that.
It's interesting though that you're saying that because I feel like a huge part of that is intention. And your intention, there's so much goodness and authenticity in your intention. And that is what translates through all of your mentorship. And even as you mentioned, you can be a mentor at any point in your life. You can meet somebody who can leave this impression on you. So I really want to dive further into mentorship. But first, I want you to take us back. Pollyanna, your story is incredible. It's inspiring. And I want you to kind of walk us through the beginning. I know that there were some challenges in your academic life, in your younger life, in your younger years, rather. And there are so many things that have kind of brought you to this moment. So I really want you to walk our audience back a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a woman who has fought for her dreams and won. I think on the surface, there's accolades, accomplishments, awards, achievements, right? But what a lot of people don't know is the simple fact that I grew up with a learning difference. I dropped out of college. I struggled academically. I was never the kid at the front of the classroom. I was bullied and tortured in high school. My mental health has uh, my mental health has been very up and down for the last 20 years. I've definitely been through some shit, but one thing that I've learned throughout my adolescent years is that second chances exist. Where you're at is not where you have to stay. And if you want something badly enough, you can achieve it. I was the person who most people counted out of the game, right? Like on paper, on my report card, it didn't necessarily say I was going to be a scientist or a doctor. Like people were like, many of the adults in my life, I won't generalize, many of the adults in my world told me that I should play it safe. I should get a cubicle job, just stay in the corner. And because I was a female, just being born a female, you're already at a deficit because people just assume you can't reach the highest heights. So I would say that, you really have to have that fight in you. I think where a lot of that fight came from, I played sports majority of my life. I was a high performance athlete. I was on all the teams in high school. I was in competitive swimming for 10 years. I was an elite soccer player for 6 years. And so sense of teamwork and that sense of wanting to win, I think that's where it was first planted. Um, and my father is also very entrepreneurial as well. And so um, he also planted seeds in me with the belief that I could do anything that I wanted to. And sometimes what's really interesting is that most entrepreneurs know this. On paper, it doesn't always make sense. You may not always have the grade, or the plan may not always come together on paper, but in your gut, something's worth fighting for, something's worth believing in, right? In your heart, you know that you found a place inside your heart, inside your gut where nothing's impossible. And I think sports definitely did that for me. And I think if I didn't have sports and I didn't have that foundation, I don't necessarily know if I would have that grit and have that fight. The other thing is my father, both my parents are in my life, but my father particularly, we didn't celebrate participant ribbons in my household. Like and I think that is, oftentimes I think now, we talk about gentle parenting, we talk about, if your kid gets seventh place, we're still rooting for them. Like that wasn't my household. My household was very like if you weren't number one, you were none. And if you're none, you better figure your shit out and be able to climb back to the top, right? So I really appreciate, I think in the moment you think your parents suck, you think they don't know anything, you think they have no experience. But looking back, I'm actually really happy that they shitted on my dreams. They made me fight for things. They made me debate for things. Nothing came easy. I can actually really appreciate that now.
How fortunate are you and are those who have had parents or that kind of influence in our lives to fight? And your father, you mentioned, ingrained this belief that you can do anything. And that is such a beautiful thing and something that I feel like so many people lack within themselves and also lack in their influence, their parents, their friends, or whoever it is. So that kind of leads me to the importance and the influence that our family, our friends, and our circle has on our success, both personally, professionally, but further to that, if we don't have that, let's say we don't have parents that remind us that we can do anything,
Yeah.
w- what can we do to ingrain that belief in ourselves and cultivate those relationships around us to have that influence?
That can't well, here's the thing. I don't wanna make it seem like my dad was just like my biggest cheerleader because he absolutely was not, right? He was definitely a hard ass. He has a military
Right.
background, right? There are many adults in my world who told me I wouldn't amount to anything or I would never make a living from my art, from my writing, right? And honestly, in the moment, yes, it does suck. But now I'm just like, I'm actually happy they told me that because it made me appreciate and fight harder. I think um self motivation is really important. Like you cannot, I don't, it doesn't matter if people are kissing your ass or people are telling you to fight. Like you just cannot hang on to external validation on any level, right? I know we hope and wish for parents and peers and teachers that are super supportive. I don't necessarily know if that's like, if that in a perfect world, that's the best thing. I feel like, I don't know if I would have fought as hard if everyone was um, constantly giving me positive affirmation and reinforcement. Like sometimes you have to break, and you have to break and bend before you can like experience that exponential growth. So for me, because I was also fighting a mental illness, I'm a high performance athlete and high performance CEO, but I struggle with depression, anxiety, and during my college years and well into my 20s, I struggled with suicide attempts and ideation. And so for me, having a great medical team, right, medical professionals, group therapy, individual therapy, nature walks, art classes, dance classes. Like therapy is not only in the form of talking to somebody, it's also experiencing nature. It's also, there's music therapy, creative therapy, right? And just like looking in the mirror and just like asking myself, like, what exactly in this moment do you want right now? Right. Based on your habits, which way your life is going to go. Right. If I continue down this path and feel sorry for myself and create, and wallow in this disbelief and create a pity party, like it's going to replicate itself. It's like a bacteria. It's going to continue growing. And so for me, it was just about what is the first realistic step that I can take in the direction that I want my life to go. And that was dropping out of school. Now, I'm now a part-time college professor. For many years, for at least a decade, I spoke in high schools as well. So I always preface and tell the kids, like, I would never tell you to drop out of school, but I don't necessarily think the traditional education system also sets you up for success in many ways. It paints us all with one big broad brush. It doesn't adhere to different learning styles, which there are 7 of them. And I encourage people who are listening, what would help you tremendously is really understanding the ways in which you learn, how you best retain information, understand your learning style. Because when you learn to hack your brain, that's when the world opens up for you. Unfortunately, I didn't learn how to hack my brain until my 20s, right? And so, to answer your question, so different therapies and also just being self motivated. So that being mindful of the food that you eat, being mindful of the music you listen to, being mindful of how you talk to yourself with respect, right? It's a lot of times the information that feeds us dictate how we're going to think. And I think we're so passive with it because it's like, oh no, I'm just listening to that rap song, when I'm working out, not knowing that that rap song is like literally deteriorating your brain. You know what I mean? So just being very careful of the information that you take in, the books that you read, what you expose yourself to when you're scrolling, all of that feeds into your belief system.
So, can you unpack a little bit more about your beliefs and sort of the intersection between values as well? I feel like you obviously value growth. You value development. You have an extreme amount of resiliency. You've gone through so much. And yet, while you are still human, of course, you are still trucking along. You are still moving forward. And obviously part of that value structure is getting through and knowing the things. And can you just unpack a little bit more about your specific values and what that actually means in order for people to move forward and maybe in a more of an aligned and productive path?
Here's the thing, in your teens and in your 20s, you might not even know what your values are. Honestly, you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to, some of us are trying to go to the latest party. Like, you don't necessarily mature enough to even understand who you are, what your value system is, what your belief system is. I would say, I'll say most people don't mature enough to really understand those things until their 20s, until they've lived a little bit. Your teens and your 20s, I tell young people, it should be messy. It should be ugly. It should be scrappy. It should be broke. It should be ghetto. You know what I mean? Like it should be all of those things. And then later on, honestly, when you're in your 30s, then you can't make any excuses. You're now responsible for your actions and taking. I made so many dumb mistakes in my 20s. I was not thinking about values. So right now I'm in my 30s. Now, I operate and move through the world a little bit differently. Um, but I will say this. Part of my value system is honoring my feelings, right? Always honoring my feelings, no matter how challenging, uncomfortable, difficult. And sometimes that means speaking up for myself. Sometimes that means lending a helping hand. Sometimes that means doing things for free. Sometimes that means saying no, creating boundaries, right? Honoring my feelings and how I'd like to operate, but not to be mistaken with allowing my feelings to necessarily um, there's a dichotomy between honoring your feelings and creating those boundaries, but also um, assessing facts over feelings. So not allowing my feelings to completely dictate every single move that I make, right? Because some I don't always feel like going to the gym. I don't always feel like going to that meeting. I don't always feel like traveling to see my mentor, to go on an excursion. Like, you know what I mean? So honoring my feelings in terms of protecting my heart, protecting who I am, protecting the things I believe in, protecting my dreams, but not allowing my feelings to necessarily dictate every single move that I make. Other values that are important to me. um, Other than that, I know we talk a lot about friendships, but like my grandmother raised me to believe that I don't necessarily need friends, right? I have friends because I want friends and I enjoy people's company, but I don't allow trends. Like I have extreme discipline. I don't allow trends and parties and people. I'm not like easily influenced by bullshit. I've never really been that way. Yes, I've enjoyed and I've indulged, but one thing that people don't know about me is that I have never tasted alcohol, right? Partially because I was an athlete growing up, but also partially because I think it's important that at least one area of your life you practice extreme discipline, right? Whether you're proving something to yourself, but just like, because I definitely feel like people are chasing goals that they're not mentally or physically conditioned for, right? So you can have all these goals in the vision board, you can have this belief system, this values, like if you're not conditioning yourself for that, then it's never going to manifest into form ever. So a part of my value system is just preparing my mind and body and spirit for what I'm praying for.
I've never heard anybody really say it like that. I love that you say facts over feelings. That's something that I resonate so deeply with. And I know so many people, once they hear that, will as well. And just even, the fact that you've never tried alcohol and maintaining that discipline with at least that one area of your life, that's incredible. And I think that's something not a lot of people can say. So kudos to you, as I'm sure, you're completely self-aware about. And you mentioned that a lot of people are chasing these goals and these dreams, but they're not mentally or physically, they haven't conditioned themselves for that. And I thought that was an interesting statement. How can we further condition ourselves to actually have what we envision, what we dream of, come into fruition? Because I feel like something that we're hearing a lot of is there's still a gap for some people, right? Like we can kind of take a couple steps forward in that direction. We have these dreams, but then we have these turn back moments, as a result of so many different things. Can you just unpack that a little bit further?
It's so hard for me because I'm not human. Like I feel like when it comes to how far I'm how far I've been willing to go and push myself, and again, it points back to athleticism, is far different than most people. How do I want to unpack this? Okay, so first of all, I think it's important to okay, I have a good analogy. So back in the day when I was in school, we did long form math division, right? You carry the one, you cross out the three, whatever, you bring over the seven, whatever, right? And you had to really put pen to paper and work out that long division equation to get to your answer. Now you just use a calculator, you get to the answer. It's a shortcut. It's microwavable, right? But that's really how I approach any challenge that I have. Like to the left of me, I have two big whiteboards. Like I love working out a problem um, by putting pen to paper, old school, right? And so when I feel stuck or when I feel like I don't know what the next logical step is, right? I create a mind map. A mind map is a very great way to add pictures and colors and shapes and different things to help organize your ideas. So that's like one area. Another area, so honestly, like scientifically, to improve your brain, there's actually a lot of research that backs that you should actually get moving. That doesn't mean you have to be a superior athlete. It can mean walking around the block. It can mean working out. It can mean going on the treadmill. It can mean, and this doesn't have to be solo dolo. You can join a run club. You can go for a walk with a girlfriend and sit like and don't get it twisted. Like I love my food. I overindulge all the things, but there is a correlation between movement and exercise and how you are able to critically think and problem solve and dissect complex issues. And because of the nature of the work that I do, that's also really important. Um, and then honestly, just like the people that I follow, like growing up, I loved biographies. I loved studying people who I love studying founders. And honestly, if you look at any great success story, they had incredible work ethic, right? They were able to see opportunity where other people saw the impossible. There's things of that nature. So it's like, yes, you can have these dreams and like, everyone has their visually appealing vision boards on their Instagrams and they want this and that. But I don't really think people understand exactly what it takes. You have to be willing to be, you have to be able to take risks. I think a lot of people are risk averse, right? So asking yourself, so when I say, so how you can build your risk tolerance is doing one thing a day that scares you. Now that could be smiling at a stranger in the mall. That could be being the first one to say hello in the elevator. That could be having that difficult conversation with your cousin who pissed you off last year. That could be picking up the phone to call someone you need to apologize to, right? Doing one thing a day that scares you will help you build that tenacity and that risk tolerance. And that's what helps also, that contributes to motivation, contributes to discipline, contributes to being able to have a side hustle or a full time business, contributes to you being able to raise your hand in the classroom or take up that project at work. But if you don't exercise these habits behind the scenes, when it's time for the championship ring and you haven't practiced, baby girl, I'm sorry, sit on the bench. Like this shit's just not for you, right? If you can't do it in your everyday life, then when it comes time to really put things into practice, into play, you're just not going to be prepared. You're going to fumble the ball.
It's so funny because it's the little things that prepare you for the big stage, and sometimes you don't even realize when that big stage is coming. So it's like you said, it's everything you do in those daily habits and then exercising our brain. And so, would you say that confidence and competence kind of work hand in hand in all of that? So for instance, you can feel like maybe you're capable or you're born to do more, or maybe you've hacked the exercising portion, the movement portion of it, but the lack of confidence because maybe your skill set isn't quite where it needs to be. Do you feel like competence plays a role in confidence and is in relation to everything you mentioned? That's just an additional component?
That's an excellent question, but I want to say this: we all know men who are not competent but are hella confident, right?
True.
And so it's literally only women who overthink this shit. It's only women. Men, anyways, let's not go down that path. But you know what I mean? Like, don't get it twisted. Like, men don't have to check all the boxes on a job application. They can have one out of 13 qualifications and they'll still go for the job. We all know that research, right? By Sheryl Sandberg. Um,
Mhm.
but women, we have to overthink how we do something and what we do and how we say it and how we show up and what are we going to wear and all these. Like, I don't necessarily think like that. You know what I started doing in recent years, I would say maybe like at least 5 years now. So like if you look at any of my social engagements, speaking engagements, when I'm on stage, you'll see I'm always in a flat tracksuit,
Mhm.
sneakers. Like I'm very laid back. I've developed my own style. I've kind of let go of the idea of what a CEO or a woman should look like. I was in that, I was in that uh circus before. And so like I kind of let that go and I want people to appreciate me for my brain and how I think. And I also, we've seen Obama and Mark Zuckerberg and a plethora, Natasha Kaufman. There's so many different CEOs who just keep a simple uniform because they don't want to think about how they show up or, because the thing is like when I show up, like I'm confident because I'm smart.
Mhm.
My image or how I show up doesn't necessarily play into like my confidence. But to answer your question, um, I don't know if they necessarily. You can argue both points. For me, there have been many times where I've been in a room, or I've been on stage, or I've been in places where I couldn't question myself, or maybe I'm not as smart as this person, or maybe I don't know if I bring to the table what this person brings to the table, but I was still confident because I mean I'm still here, right? Somehow I got here, right? I think confidence can definitely get you in the room, and confidence will keep you there. Let's just say that if I want to conclude, right? But I think confidence is the first step, right? And confidence is built through self affirmation. Confidence is built through taking risks. Confidence is built through falling on your face and getting back up 100 times, right? So I think confidence is instilled in us from when we're kids. I think that when we're kids, we're taught we can be anything and everything we want to be, and then
Mhm.
we grow up and go to high school, and then we're told we need to be realistic. And I think societal pressures, norms, and messages is what crushes the confidence that we have. I mean, I'm sure you have children in your life. I have nieces and nephews and whatnot. And like they're hella confident and they're only 4 years old. But somehow when we get to middle school, high school, it's like that gets stripped away from us.
Mhm.
And they're 4 years old, hella confident, but doesn't necessarily mean they're fully competent or capable. Like they don't know what they don't know. They don't know that if they jump down the stairs, they're going to break their leg, but
Mhm.
they're confident that they can fly. So it's like I don't know. That's a really great question. I'm a little bit stumped, but I definitely think that you can easily build your confidence, and your confidence will allow you to raise your hand, take up the project, take on that client, charge your worth, your value for that service. Your confidence allows you to take on opportunities that will build your competence.
Well, that was a beautiful answer. So I appreciate all of that. And you're so right about the young kids that they have this unwavering confidence to them and this spunk. And also, there's that level of innocence. And we do, somewhere along the way, we lose it completely. But part of building that confidence, I feel like rejection kind of plays a role. And you said something in one of your videos where you said, people see no, or no, that's not, you said, don't see no as a stop sign, see it as sort of a guideline. And I love the way that you put that because I feel like even with confidence, it's the ability to move past even rejection because you can be
Yeah.
confident enough to be like, you know what? That's okay. I can take this and use this and see it as redirection. So, can you unpack rejection a little bit in that statement? Because it was really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. You can't allow rejection to break you. So I'm in therapy for a plethora of reasons. And one of the reasons I'm in therapy is because I wanted to learn how to receive feedback well. And I also wanted to learn how to bend and not break when feedback occurs.
Mhm.
And that could be feedback, that could be rejection, that could be a plethora of different things that could be applicable to. Um, you can't like you have to when it comes to confidence, when it comes to rejection, like I mean, I've been rejected from so many things, but you also have to think about, and many people say this is not new, but rejection is also God's protection, right? There have been so many, let me tell you something. Like I recently got engaged. I'm happy to say that. I'm very
Congratulations.
thrilled. And I can't tell you how many times, like I've dated a lot of men, okay? And I can't tell you how many times when we broke up, I was like, God, please, like, you wish you could get back together. You wish you could rekindle the romance, all these things. But for whatever reason, the universe will not bring you back together, right?
Mhm.
And you're heartbroken and you're in the bed. If I didn't take those rejections, if I wouldn't have met my husband, like I would not have met the man of my dreams today if I hung
Mhm.
on to what was not going to be. Right. So it's like when you get rejected, when you hear the no in business and love and life, let it go and move on. It was literally not meant for you. It was not meant for you. And there's been like plenty of no's I've received in business. And I'm so happy it happened because you know what? The next month, the next year, the next decade, it was a full circle moment where the next opportunity that came was a million times better.
To kind of further that, you mentioned, God and the universe and sort of these different concepts that play in that and recognizing that redirection is or rejection is redirection and then for God it's protection.
Mhm.
On a broader scale, what has how has faith played a role in your journey? I think that's a really important point to touch on.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I use those interchangeably because I know we have a very broad audience
Yes.
and it doesn't matter who you believe
Mhm.
in. Um, I think that it's important to be anchored by something because when you are in the red, on your back, curled up in a ball, snot bubbles running down your face, and you just want to end it all, which many of us have been there before. God, the universe, whoever is literally the only person that can save you from yourself, right? There's no friend, family, not even your mama can step in and be like, and like help you in those moments. Um, and that goes for entrepreneurs or people who work 9 to 5, right? Like we've all had moments, whether it's grief, rejection, et cetera, that have broken us. And so faith plays a huge role in my life because in college, I attempted suicide twice, and God was the person that gave me a second chance, right? There have been many a times where early in my entrepreneurial career when I couldn't make payroll. And just in the nick of time, he stepped in and I was able to land a project or a job that helped me. Like there just like there are definitely you can feel him or her, right? In certain interactions, right? It's not just like my therapist says you can feel him in, when you look at the breeze in the leaves, when someone the cashier smiles at you and wishes you would have a good day. Like, you know what I mean? You can choose how God or the universe shows up in your life. But for me, if I look back on my journey, there are definitely instances where it was a miracle that happened. And I truly believe in miracles. And I believe that if I step out in faith, that there will be a safety net to catch me. I believe that if I am anchored by something, you know, no matter how broken I feel, that I can get up again. Um, I come from a family of pastors, so that also plays a big role in my life. And I just, sometimes when you just can't depend on man, on friends, family, whatever, um, you find yourself on your knees praying to God, asking Him to save you, asking Him to help you, asking Him to carry you through. And when you're an entrepreneur, excuse me, when you're an entrepreneur, you're faced with so many different decisions, challenging decisions. As a woman, we are faced and we are often put in compromising situations. And sometimes there's not a lot of people in your circle who can relate. And sometimes you need to talk to somebody. And so whether I'm in the shower or driving down the street or going for a walk, sometimes I'll just talk out loud, hoping that he hears me. Right. So yeah, absolutely. Because in entrepreneurship, sometimes it's the red pill or the blue pill. Sometimes it's, you question whether or not, should I take this dirty money? Should I work with this client that I really don't mess with? Should I you're contemplating what you should do that would affect your future, your family, your friends, your reputation. And sometimes there's not a lot of people who can relate to that.
It's interesting because even earlier in this conversation, you mentioned how you talked a little bit about building your risk tolerance. And I feel like even as an entrepreneur or when you're trying to pursue different things that are maybe out of your element professionally, personally, you really do have to take that risk to kind of step in the unknown. And it's like you said, maybe you don't always have those people that you can talk to, but you resort to a divine being who is there for you because in the face of the unknown, what is the alternative? Right? And who do you have? And just having that faith that things will be the way they are supposed to, that is aligned for you, is something that is so transcending and beautiful. And I feel like could be a missing link for so many people that feel like it just stops here.
You're absolutely right. I yeah, I can't there's so many things that have happened in our lives that just can't be explained. And I believe in miracles. You kind of have to believe in miracles. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've scrolled on Instagram and I've seen, you always see those feel good stories. And that also tells me, I'm like, wow, like I believe in miracles. I have to. I've just seen it too many times not to. And
Mhm.
if it can happen to that person, it can happen for me.
I love that. That statement right there, if it happened to this person, it can happen to me, is
Mhm.
I think it's so beautifully simply said, but it's actually quite powerful because so many people, just with anything, Pollyanna, it's, well, I'm not worthy of this, or why do I get this? Why could I have that kind of life? How could this possibly exist for me? Because there's abundance for all. And if it happened to this person, why can't it happen for you? Why can't it?
Yeah.
Who taught you that? What limiting beliefs do you have that make you feel like it can't happen for you?
Yeah, absolutely. But also on the flip side, I was talking to my therapist and she said, you shouldn't be jealous of other people. We're talking generally speaking, because I'm not really jealous of people, but
Yeah,
she was like, you don't know what they did to get it. Right. And remember, I was talking about the dirty
that's right.
money, the compromising situations, the shortcuts, right? So you can see somebody, right? You can see somebody's winnings or earnings and think, wow, like why hasn't this happened for me yet? However, like you really should just focus on your lane and your pace. Um, and everything will happen to you and for you as it should, in the timing it should. You don't want blessings too soon because you'll fumble them, right? And the other thing is, yeah, just don't watch other people because you just don't know what they had to do to get it. And that could be good and that could be bad. And I know a lot of people in this game who are willing to compromise their soul just to earn money, cars, houses, like who are willing to be willing to compromise their marriage. Like you know, what I mean? So like just you just don't know. I know a lot of people, good and bad and ugly, and you just don't know what their path is. So that's one main reason that I just don't even look to the left or the right.
It's interesting, and you being able to point that out is, I feel like, something that a lot of people don't really talk about because they are so quick to look at someone's highlight reel and be like, "Oh, they have everything," but you really have no idea, and I feel like a common theme to that is sort of our character, right? It comes down to what kind of person do you show up as, and you said this. You made this video and it was, "Who are you when nobody's watching?" So,
Right.
I think that's really important and really powerful, and there was this, you were doing a shoot and you had found out that
Mm.
the staff there didn't even get paid, and you took it
Oh,
upon yourself to honor them and appreciate them for their service
and
and their
pay
time,
them.
and you paid them exactly, but when I watched that video, it wasn't even a surprise to me because I've known you for so many years, and that was your character back then as well. This is who you
Mhm.
are and your character. So while some people are gaining success off of maybe bad intentions or, morals, ethics, all that kind of thing, can you talk about the intersection between character and who you are? Like the importance of building that foundation of a strong character and how that can play into all of that.
Yeah, so it all boils down to decision making. We all have options. That's the other thing too. It's like you can watch other people, but you have, let me rethink my statement. Because here's the thing. I think some of us blame our race, our gender, our economic status, our geography, right? Our family dynamic. We blame all these things for why we don't have.
Mhm.
And sure, some of it's research backed, whatever, whatever. Honestly, whatever. However, I do feel like at the end of the day, we all have options. There's always the red pill or the blue pill at every intersection. When you open the fridge to eat breakfast, there's options there, right? Um, and I just feel like those options are what help. The option that you choose, your choice ends up helping build your character, right? And so I could have entered that shoot was a gift to me. Like a magazine reached out, they wanted to do a shoot, they wanted to put me on the cover. Cool, right? And then I later found out certain details about the editor in chief. I found out the team wasn't paid, and like I could have. It wasn't my responsibility to take care of anybody. I didn't have to do that. But for me, when something's not right, if I can help, and if and that's the other thing too. If you are abundantly blessed, it's not to hoard it for yourself, right? It's to give and it's to help and to be a blessing to others. So if I'm in a position where I can help, not just financially, but in other ways, then I absolutely will. And it feels good to do that, right? There's so much shit that I do for people that I don't have to do, but I want to do it because it,
Mhm.
it feels good. I grew up volunteering. I think things like that build character. I grew up volunteering. Volunteering locally, but I've taken mission trips around the world. Like when you do things outside of yourself, that builds character. It's not necessarily the video you put on Instagram, and I mean, it's like, I mean, that's cool, but most people do that for the purpose of branding. Most people do that for the purpose of building community. I want to know what you do behind the scenes that most people don't know,
Mhm.
right? I have stories of traveling to Ghana and Australia and, volunteering at different organizations growing up as little as like 8, 9, 10 years old. Like that's what's built my character, like helping people in need, putting myself in a position where I can also recount and rethink, what am I complaining about? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like no matter what I'm going through, it's still pretty well off. Right. And so just yeah, like I'm more interested in people's lives that they don't show on social media than I am on what they do show. Because I think that's where you're gonna get the true heart of somebody.
Exactly. And it's interesting too, even while a lot of people might not be showcasing the behind the scenes, as you get to know somebody on a deeper level and with time,
Yeah.
the mask can only be on for so long. So your character
Yeah.
really is going to be what shines through after enough time has passes. So I know I've
Yeah.
already said this, but that's again, and that's something that I feel like you represent is that authenticity and that conviction because, you know, it's been consistent and more. And you continue to serve others while also being able to thrive and continue working towards your own goals. But you never forget about the people around you. You see the potential in people, you see the good in people, and you want to help. So, God bless like all the abundance you have. And I truly, wish more for you and whatever it is you desire and more. But I really appreciate you sharing that about character because I think that's something a lot of people can really sit with, resonate with, and expand on. Because at the end of the day, if you lost everything, who are you?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And the thing is, everything can be taken away.
Yeah.
I think I think most of us take it for granted.
Yeah.
Everything can be taken away. I have friends who ask me like, "Why do you make time to mentor? Like, how do you even have the time?" I'm like, for me, it's not, first of all, it's not going to kill me. Like, you have the choice to organize your calendar however you choose,
Mhm.
right? I choose to make time in my calendar to teach at a college. I choose to make time in my calendar to spend time with young adults, with my peers. Like, I don't know. I genuinely enjoy it. And I want to just circle back on mentorship for a
Yeah.
second. I think that, mentorship has become very trendy now, but what people don't understand is the mentorship that I have participated in, that I've done, on one level, it's helping entrepreneurs. That's cute. On another level, it's hospital visits when mentees are on their deathbeds or when they're ill. It's driving around the streets of Toronto when my mentees are tricking themselves on the street corner. It's being a mediator between parents because their parents want nothing to do with some of my mentees. It's going to funerals when my mentees die from cancer. It's being that phone call when my mentee is threatening to kill herself. It's going to the jail cell and posting bond because my mentee got herself in trouble. Like, it's so much more than like cute logos on Instagram and like this, like the fluffy bubblegum rainbow stories. It's like if you're gonna do something for real, like actually do it.
Mhm.
Don't just like do it just for the sake of conversation. Do it, and that's it. What I've told you is like those are things that like I don't typically, I'm gonna say I would never because I just told you, but I don't typically share because A, it's none of anyone's business, but B, it's like mentorship is a myriad of different things. It's
Yeah.
not just like what I can post on social media. It's like being there for people for real. And so like, yeah, I don't believe the hype. That's like a inside saying that me and my friend have. We just don't believe the hype. We don't believe the smoke and mirrors. It's like character comes from what you're willing to do when no one's watching, but it also just comes from you can tell pretty quickly if someone's a good person, right? And that's the thing. In business, you also have to learn how to play chess, right? So it doesn't mean because just because people aren't good people doesn't necessarily mean you disqualify them. I know a lot of effed up people, right? But I know how to play the game. I know the players on the board. I know their characteristics. I know their responsibilities. I know I know how they fit into the puzzle of life and
Mhm.
I act accordingly. Right. So I just want to also put that out there. Like it's to win at this game, you have to be strategic. You can like you're not necessarily there's no possible way you can always surround yourself with good people. And do you really want to? You know what I mean? Like I get like the motivational part of the conversation. Be like, yeah, like surround yourself with amazing people. Okay, that's cute. But honestly, it's actually really smart to surround yourself with so many different types of people because what also builds character is also building discernment, right? Like being able to judge someone's character, being able to read them, and being able to be in a position where you can move around the chessboard as you would like to.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and that discernment is something that's a lot of people don't have and can certainly continue to build and just being more strategic in that. And then something earlier that I wanted to touch on, you mentioned in your previous answer was choice. how
Uh-huh.
fortunate and blessed are we to be able to have free will and then to take accountability for those choices we make. And that's kind of what you said, right? Is kind of in anything that we do, it comes down to a choice and what we're willing to do, what we're not willing to do, accountability, and just even, you can you're not always going to be faced with good people. So just everything is
Mhm.
so
Everything
hmm,
contributes to the person and the woman you become,
absolutely.
right? Like everything cannot be rainbows and sunshines. You're going to be in so many effed up and compromising positions,
Yeah.
and I welcome them because it helps me. It makes me sharper. It helps me to critically think, problem solve, and then those are transferable skills that I can apply to anything,
Mhm.
anywhere.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
that. You know, we've really touched a lot on, personal development and your journey, and it's been incredible. And I know that we're running out of time, but there's something I really want to touch on in terms of the business entrepreneurial side. You are incredible, what you have built for yourself and what you continue to work toward. Now, your clients refer to you as the content ninja, right? So, the question I have for you is for those folks that are, which is amazing, by the way, those the audience that's watching you right now, they've got to hear a little bit more about who Pollyanna is, what she values, now, in terms of our purpose, our passion, our dreams, monetizing your passion,
Wait,
go
hold on.
ahead,
I gotta say something.
please.
Don't chase your passion. People who tell you to chase your passion are already rich. Chase your talent. I think
Ah,
I don't know where you're going with this question, but I think we often throw around the word passion way too often. Like I'm passionate about puppies. Like I'm passionate about swimming. Like I think we need to do a better assessment of because okay, I know. Let me get to the point because I know we're running out of time. I've worked with young people and they're like, I want to be a this or that, a life coach or whatever, right? And it's like, just because they're passionate about helping people, okay, then join a nonprofit, volunteer. That doesn't necessarily mean you're meant to do that thing. I think we need to take a better assessment and inventory of what our skills are
mm,
and try to monetize our skill set and our talents and our gifts, not necessarily our passions. I think that's where people, I think that's where the conversation gets foggy, and that's where people get really confused. You have so many entrepreneurs that are out on their ass because they follow their passion, but they didn't have the skill set to back it up, right? They're just following their heart, following their passion. And you can call me a hypocrite because I failed grade 11 and 12 English, and now I'm a rock star when it comes to storytelling, communications, and writing. But I worked at it though, right? So it's like, sure, if you want to follow your passion, just make sure you have the skill set to back it up. Because when you get to the big leagues, you're gonna have to put numbers on the motherfucking scoreboard, right? And if you don't have the and like you can fake it for quite some time, right? So I like to call it cyber glitter. You can
mm,
fake it for quite some time. When you get into certain rooms and conversations, and when you deal with certain clients, like people can read you real quick. So
mhm.
I just want to like I wasn't sure where you're gonna go, but I was like, I just don't want people to like live in this bubble of like if they're gonna follow their passion. You should assess your skills and talents. When you're rich, you can follow your passion. When you got the money, you can follow your passion. Not when you're a young adult and trying to make it.
Pollyanna, I don't think anybody has had the guts to say it like that before. I've never heard it like that. I think I'm like, "Oh," and I love that you stopped me and I love that you changed course and you provided that specific insight because it's authentic and I think it's the realness behind is what you would say the cyber glitter, right? It's you the
Mhm.
skills that are attached to it. So now my question is how can we do that inventory check and how can people identify like, we want to monetize on our talent. How do we do that? What's one thing you would say to those folks watching right now? Now they have
So
this
first
insight.
you have to have good question. So first you have to have skills and have talent to even assess, right? How do you do that? So let's go a step because most people because most people suck. Most people are very mediocre. Like it's really about assessing like most people are very because their parents praise them for getting in seventh place, they're complacent and they're mediocre and they think that that's what's going to make it in the real world. No, honey, that's not true. So I think it's about when you're in your 20s. This is what I said. Like your 20s should be messy, right?
Mhm.
Messy doesn't mean sloppy and drunk on your ass. That's not how I define messy. Messy means a beautiful collage of experiences, right? Traveling the world. My sister used to backpack around Europe, sleeping in hostels.
Wow.
Like, you know what I mean? Like volunteering, traveling the world, speaking to different people, learning new skills, joining this Zumba class, or like doing things, you know what I mean? Like rock climb, like just doing things that help you make a quick assessment of whether or not you like this, whether or not it fires you up, whether or not it gives you butterflies, whether or not it introduces you to new groups, people, places, and things. That is what your 20s is dedicated for. And as you transition into your later 20s, early 30s, then you're able to make a better assessment of like what's the risks I'm willing to take? What are the conversations I want to participate in? What's important to me? What issues fire me up, right?
Right.
Then you have to try shit to assess your skills and talents to be able to decide what path you want to take.
Mhm.
And what happens is oftentimes our parents use language like, don't do that, get off that, be careful, right? And so we're so bombarded with like not taking risks and not doing the things because our parents are so scared. Um, but it's really important that you color outside the lines, and then you'll have so many skills and talents to be able to assess. And then it's just a process of elimination, and that's easy.
A life beyond your wildest dreams really does exist past fear and pushing through the unknown.
Yeah, and you don't have to if you didn't have the opportunity to do that in your 20s, you can start now. I also want to say that. I don't want to just because like most of us are out of our 20s, right? Start now. You can start at any time. You can hit the reset button anytime you want to, as many times as you want to.
I love that. Thank you for that reminder. Pollyanna, it really has been incredible talking to you. I have one final question for you. Is there anything that you would like to share to the audience? Maybe something that you've never had the opportunity to say before. I want to say, oh, what advice would you give? Maybe it's a piece of advice, maybe it's not. Is there anything that you feel called to conclude our conversation with that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to do so before?
Nothing necessarily new, but I will repeat a sentiment that I've learned from someone that I love to share. One of my favorite things to share. And it's more strategic than anything. So, Amanda Seales, I'm going to give her all the praise and all the credit. She often talks about your self worth versus your market value.
Mm,
And so your self-worth is the bubble that you play within. It's your friends, clapping their hands and praising you. It's the people you're familiar with that sing your praises, give you affirmation, right? But a lot of us are not necessarily making it to where we want to in life because we're not contributing to our market value, right? Like earning the respect of your industry peers. Um, Market value allows you to leapfrog steps in your career. So while we look at other people, while we look at them and say, "Oh my God, she's there and he's there," it's oftentimes because they've made certain moves that contribute to their market value, allow them to leapfrog steps in their career and get to their final destination faster. If you just do things the straight and laced way, it doesn't mean you won't get there. It'll take you a lot longer. So just think about life and opportunity and success by, the people who often get there, whatever there is, the final destination, they don't always go through the front door. They go through the window, they go through the back door, they go through the basement. And so, and those three entrances are not as obvious. And most people just go through the front door, and the front door is always crowded.
I love that. Thank you so much. Pollyanna, thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much for your time, your energy, your insights, and just being so genuine and audaciously living in such a way that people can be inspired by and hopefully cultivate more of that bravery to do the same. So I appreciate you truly, truly.
Thank you. This was a great conversation. Great questions.
Thanks, B.